The BPID security device is the world's first wireless biometric device to offer secure identity verification while protecting its users' personal privacy. The BPID device's issuance process is called enrollment. A precise enrollment is required for the device to operate properly. This video trains enrollment administrators to accurately enroll users and ensure that they can successfully and quickly verify with their device. This video is not intended to replace the enrollment software instruction manual. Enrollment takes about 2 minutes to complete and is a simple 4-step process. Step 1. Analyze the user's fingerprint. Step 2. Determine the center position. Step 3. Enroll the finger. And Step 4. Verify the enrollment. It is recommended that you enroll at least 2 fingers in the device. The user's primary thumb should always be enrolled first, and then the secondary thumb as a backup in case of injury. Remember that you can always erase a user's fingers from the device and re-enroll them at any time. We will now discuss each step in more detail. Step 1. Analyze the user's fingerprint. The most critical step of enrollment is locating the core of the user's fingerprint. The core is the most feature-rich portion of the fingerprint and usually forms one of 3 shapes. The core of the fingerprint must be placed over the center of the fingerprint sensor in order to achieve an accurate enrollment. The best way to do this is to visually relate the core of the fingerprint to the cuticle of the finger. This is done by inspecting the user's fingerprint to locate the core and then tracing its position around the finger to determine its alignment with the cuticle or base of the fingernail. Is the core directly behind the cuticle, above, or below it? It is this location that must be centered on the fingerprint sensor for enrollment and regular device use. Step 2. Determine the center position. Looking at the device from the side, guide the user's finger onto the device so that the point just identified relative to the cuticle is directly over top the very center of the sensor. This correctly positions the fingerprint core over the center of the sensor and is called the center position. This is the basis for all device operation. Important, with the exception of extremely small fingers, when in the center position, most users will be covering all or a portion of the device's gray power button. The user must be able to easily replicate the center position during enrollment and for regular device use. So with the finger correctly aligned in the center position, identify a visual reference point for the user. For example, where does their fingertip line up on the device? Is it above or below the gray power button? Is it above or below the green or yellow LED? Always use the tip of the finger as a guide for a reference point, and never the fingernail, as its length will change. Step 3. Enroll the finger. To begin, have the user wipe their finger on a tissue or clean piece of clothing. Fingers do not need to be washed prior to enrollment. Then have the user swipe their clean finger down the sensor several times to make sure that the fingerprint sensor is free of any dirt or residue. Instruct the user to never squeeze the device. Just press hard enough to make solid contact with the sensor. On a scale of 1 to 5, pressure should equal about a 2. The device should always be held with one hand, just as it will be held during regular device use. Holding it differently may result in failed verifications during regular use. The thumb should always be flat and level with the top of the device. The knuckle should never appear bent. During enrollment, the fingerprint sensor captures images on and around the fingerprint core, encodes them, and then stores them as a template on the device. The enrollment software will guide you through 5 fingerprint scans, requiring the user to place their finger in varying positions. The device flashes yellow to request a finger, turns solid yellow while scanning, and flashes green when an image has been captured. For the first scan, remind the user of their visual reference point and instruct them to place their finger in the center position. For the second scan, position the finger slightly higher than the center position. For the third scan, place the finger back in the center position. For the fourth scan, place the finger slightly lower than the center position, though never so low that only the fingertip is on the sensor. For the fifth scan, return the finger to the center position. Enrollment is complete when the light on the device turns solid green. If the light does not turn solid green after the fifth scan, The device may require additional images to complete enrollment. In this case, continue to place the finger on the device using the same sequence as the original 5 scans. Continue this process until a solid green light appears on the device. Step 4. Verify the enrollment. During verification, the device compares the user's live fingerprint to the fingerprint template that is stored on the device. Verification allows the administrator to ensure that the user's enrollment was successful and gives the user a chance to practice verifying with their device. Always have the user place their finger in the center position for verification, reminding them of their reference point if necessary. A successful verification should only take about a second and is indicated by a solid green light on the device. The user should be able to quickly and repeatedly verify. After the primary thumb has been successfully enrolled and verified, repeat the process with the secondary thumb. When both thumbs are enrolled and verified, turn off the device and issue it to the user. The remaining portion of this video relates to troubleshooting. If enrollment or verification was sluggish or failed, attempt to remedy this issue by reviewing the troubleshooting sections that follow, starting with Level 1 and working your way through to Level 4 if necessary. Troubleshooting Level 1. The user may not be placing their finger in this center position. Remind them of their reference point to encourage proper placement. While the sensor is scanning, instruct the user to reposition their finger to aim for the center position. It's okay to move the finger while the sensor is scanning. Just be sure it is held in each new position 2 seconds to give the sensor time to scan. The user may be applying too little or too much pressure on the fingerprint sensor. Ask the user to slightly increase the pressure on the sensor for a few seconds and then decrease it to find the right amount, which will often trigger a successful verification. Ensure that the user is holding the device with only one hand, just as they held the device during enrollment. Ensure that the user's knuckle is not raised or bent. The finger should be flat and level with the sensor. Troubleshooting Level 2. If enrollment or verification continues to be sluggish or fail, relocate the user's fingerprint core relative to their cuticle. Re-examine the user's core, slowly retracing it to the front of the finger to identify a point relative to the cuticle. It should be slightly different from the original location. Place this point relative to the cuticle over the center of the fingerprint sensor to find the center position and identify a new visual reference point for the user. Note, always be sure to look for fingerprint cores that are off-center. This is not uncommon and requires the user to place the right or left side of their finger over the center of the sensor in order to successfully enroll and verify. Use the enrollment software to erase the original enrollment for the finger having difficulty and then re-enroll that finger using the new reference point. Troubleshooting Level 3. Re-enroll the user's trouble finger, but complete each of the 5 image captures in the center position, that is directly over the core, instead of moving their finger up and down on the sensor. Troubleshooting Level 4. It is possible that the user's primary thumb does not have the necessary amount of features to enroll or verify with a high degree of reliability. In this instance, erase the problem finger and enroll the user's secondary thumb. The primary index finger should then be enrolled as the backup. It is important to know that approximately 1% of the population is unable to use fingerprint biometric technologies. If enrollment and verification have failed for both thumbs and an index finger, the user will require a non-fingerprint-based access solution. After a successful enrollment, the user can practice using their BPID device. The more acquainted the user becomes with their device, the easier it will be for them to incorporate the device into their everyday lives. If you have additional questions regarding enrollment, please consult your instruction manual or call your customer service contact. Pivaris, security with personal privacy.